OpenAI started as a nonprofit dedicated to saving humanity from dangerous AI. Within a decade, it became one of the most powerful and secretive corporations on Earth. And the woman who reported on it from the inside says the mission was never what they claimed. By the end of this video, you'll know how OpenAI's founding idealism collapsed under the weight of money and power. Why Sam Altman may be the most dangerous CEO in Silicon Valley right now, and what the global race for AI dominance actually means for the rest of us. Let's get into it. Chapter 1: The Origin Lie. When OpenAI launched in 2015, Elon Musk and Sam Altman stood in front of cameras and announced a billion-dollar nonprofit whose sole purpose was to develop artificial general intelligence safely and give it away for free, for the good of all humanity. No shareholders, no profit motive, just pure open research. Karen Hao spent years covering AI for MIT Technology Review. And what she found when she started digging was that this founding story was, at best, a strategic myth. The open in OpenAI was abandoned almost immediately. Research that was supposed to be published freely started getting locked behind closed doors the moment it looked commercially valuable. The nonprofit structure, designed to keep AI development accountable to the public, quietly got a commercial arm bolted onto it. And then that commercial arm became the actual company. But here's the thing, Hao keeps coming back to, nobody was lying in the obvious sense. It's more disturbing than that. The people inside genuinely believed they were the good guys. They convinced themselves that being the ones to build powerful AI was the safety move, that if they didn't do it, someone worse would. This is what Hao calls the race logic trap, and it's the engine that drives everything else in this book. Stay with me, because the next chapter is where that logic gets used to justify something much darker. Chapter 2: The Sam Altman Problem. If there's a central character in this book, it's Sam Altman, and Hao's portrait of him is genuinely chilling, not because he's a cartoon villain, but because he's so completely himself. Altman is a master of what Hao describes as visionary capture, the ability to make you feel like you're part of something so historically important that normal ethical guardrails start to feel small and petty. Colleagues describe conversations with him where they walked in skeptical and walked out, convinced they were building the most important technology in human history. This talent made him extraordinarily effective at fundraising. The Microsoft deal, a reported $13 billion, was largely Altman's personal achievement, but it also made OpenAI structurally dependent on a single corporate partner with its own interests, its own lobbyists, and its own agenda. Hao documents the 2023 board firing and reinstatement of Altman, the most dramatic corporate crisis in Silicon Valley in years, and her read is different from the standard narrative. The board wasn't acting irrationally. They were trying to exercise the oversight function they were legally created to perform. They got destroyed for it. Within days, Altman was back, the board members were gone, and the message sent to every future oversight body was unmistakable. The mission does not override the man. The nonprofit board existed to put a guardrail on the most powerful AI company in the world. It lasted about a week when it tried to use that power. And it raises the question, Hao spends the second half of the book wrestling with, if internal governance failed this completely, what's left? Chapter 3: Who actually pays the price? Here's where Hao's book separates itself from every other AI narrative you've read. Because most books about OpenAI are really books about a small group of extremely wealthy people in San Francisco arguing about the future. Hao zooms out. She traces what building these systems actually costs, not in dollars, but in human labor and human harm. The content moderation workforce, largely based in Kenya, was paid roughly $2 an hour to review some of the most psychologically damaging content imaginable. Child abuse, torture, extreme violence. This work was essential to making ChatGPT safe enough to release to the public. The workers reported severe trauma. Some described lasting psychological damage. OpenAI's contractor, Sama, eventually pulled out of the contract. The people who did the work got almost nothing. How connects this to a broader argument? The benefits of AI are being concentrated at the top of a very small pyramid, while the costs, labor exploitation, environmental damage from data centers, displacement of workers, are being distributed globally, falling hardest on people who have the least power to push back. This isn't an accident of the technology, it's a structural feature of who built it, who funds it, and who it was built for. But the scariest chapter might be the last one, because it's not about what's already happened. It's about where all of this is heading. Chapter 4, The Empire. The title isn't metaphor. Hao uses the word empire with intention. She argues that OpenAI and the small cluster of American AI companies around it is constructing something that functions like imperial infrastructure. The models themselves become the operating system of global communication, commerce, education, and governance. Whoever controls the models controls the defaults, controls what's filtered, controls what gets amplified. And right now, that control is held by a handful of companies with no democratic mandate, minimal regulatory oversight, and a self-granted mission to act on behalf of all humanity. Hao doesn't think these companies are uniquely evil. Her argument is structural. Even well-intentioned people operating inside these systems face incentives that push them toward consolidation, speed, and secrecy, because that's what the competitive environment rewards. She ends the book without a clean solution, which some readers will find frustrating. But her point is that there isn't one. What she's calling for is a fundamental rethinking of who gets to make these decisions, who benefits, and who bears the costs, before the infrastructure becomes too entrenched to challenge. Empire of AI is one of those books that reframes something you thought you understood. You probably already had opinions about OpenAI, about Sam Altman, about AI regulation. After reading Hao, those opinions will be more complicated and better for it. The core argument is simple, even if the implications aren't. We are building transformative infrastructure with the governance structures of a startup, and the window to change that is closing faster than most people realize. If that's a story you want to follow, this one is worth your time.